Hi everyone, this is Patricia Shanks and it's Studio Shanks Sundays live at 5 here on YouTube at youtube.com/Patricia Shanks Voice. And thanks for watching. Let me tell you about a couple of sites where you can find me. You can find me on Twitter at Studio Shanks. On Facebook, my page is Patricia Shanks Music. I get lost in these sometimes. And I am on Instagram at Patricia_Shanks, I believe. So please find me, like me, follow me, do whatever the designated requirement is. Subscribe here, if you will. I would really appreciate it. It doesn't hurt you, and it helps me just to know that you're there, mainly. So anyway, yes, I'm at it again, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about warming up, and I'll try to refrain from using that evil practice word, but warming up and doing vocal technical exercises. What it's all about, why it's important, and I think in advance of that, the primary problem that I encounter is that students, especially younger students, the current generation, don't have any idea of what warming up really is supposed to be all about, what it is. Very often singers will think that doing a couple of some kind of scale exercises, just going up and down through them, warms up the voice. And I always kind of relate it to the old days when we used to start the car and leave it sit in the driveway and let it warm up for a while before we drive off. But it's well, in a way it is kind of like that, because we have to get the vocal cords ready to sing, so you have to give them a little advance warm-up. But it really is a matter of training the muscles, the voice, the mechanism to know what the ear wants, training the ear to respond to the muscles. And you know, there just is no way to put all of what warming up and vocalizing is all about, should be all about, into some kind of a nutshell. There's just too much to it. And singers who are very serious about their singing and about whether it's for a career or just because they love it so much they want to be able to do it better, singers who are very serious very often understand the need to do these vocal exercises. And this is not just, you know, very often singers, young singers, novice beginning singers especially, will think of vocal exercises as something that classical singers do. And that's just not the case. I remember years ago, oh gosh, Rod McEwen, okay, for those of you who are of my generation and a little bit older, will remember Rod McEwen. And he was a sort of a folk rock singer, I think. I'm not really sure how to classify his genre, but he had some issues with his voice, and you know, he was singing not knowing how to breathe, and he made a big point of this in interviews, not knowing how to breathe, not knowing what to do with his voice. He was a wonderful performer, but with touring and regular performing, it's the wear and tear on his voice started to take away his speaking and his singing voice. And for those of you, again, of my generation and older who remember, he's had talked with a bit of a raspy, soft voice. And he did say in an interview that I heard that he learned how to breathe and he learned a few things, and he was able to regain his singing voice. But his speaking voice still suffered, and I'm not sure how that all works, and I am not a speech or voice therapist, so that's not something that I can really speak to. But what was wonderful is that he was a spokesperson for why we learn to use our voice well. And that's no matter what genre. It doesn't matter if you're an opera singer, a musical theater singer, a pop singer, a folk singer, some other thing that I'm not, a jazz singer, or you know, a hard, heavy metal rock singer. You need to know how to operate your voice so that you can keep it healthy. And so that what I always tell my students, if you get into trouble, if you're doing something stylistically that you want to do that's maybe a scream or something, you know, which there are ways to do, by the way, that you don't hurt yourself. But if there's something that you do that you start to feel the wear and tear on your voice from, well, if you are trained and you continue in your training and continue working with someone to keep that voice in tip-top shape, um, then there are things that you can do. You have a fallback position of a healthy technique. So, um, so this is, again, it doesn't matter what genre you're singing. I was just recently reading an article in my wonderful classical singer magazine by Christy Amundsen, or Amundsen, was the author, and she was talking about waking up to warming up the voice. And I just love it when I see these things. I sit in my little segregated separate space here and cheer silently over what other teachers and singers have to say about this, because sometimes it's very solitary working with new students who don't understand and trying to get them to understand what it is they're doing, why they should be doing it, and that it's not just for classical singers, but that it's for everyone. And sometimes the techniques that we use um, sound like classical techniques. Sometimes I use a technical book. I would love to use it for all of my singers, but the pop and rock singers and the more contemporary indie singers, they look at this like, what is this Italian vocal method? What is this thing? I don't understand it. This doesn't pertain to me. So one of the things that I always kind of say to friends, and is that I give students what they want, a little bit of what they want, and then I try and sneak in a little teaching too. So these days it's an ongoing struggle and an ongoing challenge to be able to offer students the very best training and still kind of cater to their whims a little bit so that we don't discourage them or turn them away from singing. But then again, my feeling is that if you're serious about what you're doing, it's not going to turn you away. You're going to try it. You're going to experiment. You're going to want to learn. You're going to want to grow as a singer and take in all these different methods and all of this information and see what works for you. You have to be an explorer and a scientist. I always say you take a little bit of this, you take a little bit of that, you take this technique, that element, put them all in the beaker. And if it boils over, then, maybe we should start with a different formula and put this and put that in, or maybe something that from the original formula, and then let's try this too. And, so everybody's an individual, and it's an ongoing kind of process, learning how to vocalize and how to apply that to our singing. But anyway, in terms of other genres, my background was classical. I was a classical professional opera chorister with a couple of companies, and I also do musical theater. I did musical theater for years, and these days I still do a little classical, but I have fun singing jazz and the Great American Songbook. So and when you have a good technique, you can cross over a little bit sometimes. Not everyone, but we're not all created the same, So what you have as a singer is personal to you. It has to do with your personality. It has to do with your abilities. It has to do with your voice quality, with who you are, what you look like, the whole package, So anyway, that's part of the discovery and learning process. But getting back to a point that I was going to make twice now, my background is classical, and I tend to use methods like Vakai, which I think is just the perfect vocal method because it involves every interval that you need, every combination of sounds, vowels and consonants, every bit of what you need. And it's also kind of fun because if you know the translations, the actual literal translations of these little Italian exercises, they all have to do in a kind of a sneaky way with the technique that you're learning in that particular exercise. So Vakai is my method of choice, but I don't use it with all students because they're not all interested, and I have to kind of feel that out right away so that I don't put someone off with it. But in, again, this wonderful Waking Up to Warming Up article in Classical Singer magazine that Miss Amundsen, I'm sorry, Christy Amundsen, I don't know how to say your last name, she mentions Liz Lewis, who teaches many of the popular rock and pop singers. And I love some of the things that she's written on her website, which is thesingersworkshop.com. If you dig around there, you can find some good information. And there aren't many websites that I really uh, tell people to go visit, because there's a lot of interesting information out there, and from a lot of well-meaning teachers. But I do agree with a lot of what Miss Lewis has to say, as well as my other favorite website, singwise.com, and her YouTube site, Singwise Vocals, and that is Karen O'Connor, I think. This is terrible. I should know that. But anyway, those are some great sites. So these are people who both work with all kinds of singers, and Miss Lewis works with a lot of those popular singers. So good technique, good training, working with a teacher who has a good ear and a good sense of what it is to make an appropriate sound is, goes across all the genres, is what I'm trying to say. So, vocal exercises. There are a couple of things a couple of exercises that I like. And I'm going to give you a couple of little tips too. One of the tips, these are not unique to me. One of them I've never heard anyone else use, but let me give you some actual information that you can hang your hat on today, and not just all of my discussion of my philosophy of life. One of the exercises one of the things that you can apply to exercises and to songs. Sometimes we have trouble with the consonant R, especially in the English language. English is just really difficult to sing in. It's not a vocal-friendly language. So R can often get stuck back and get trapped in the gullet back there. So if you have a word like realize, say, is that ever in a song? Realize. Okay. And I just was thinking of it there, which helped me pronounce it. Some words you can put an invisible W in front of, if I could only speak, an invisible W in front of, like the word wreath, okay, W-R-E-A-T-H. If you have the word realize, say you think of it as realize with that W in the front, you can feel it automatically keeps your tongue from pulling back and causing you some grief in the back of your throat and holding that voice in. Okay, so that's a little tip that you can hang your hat on. Another one that I did not invent, and then people pass down through from singer to singer and voice teacher to voice teacher. If you have trouble rolling an R, especially up front, where you should roll it, there are different places where you can roll an R. One is way in the back, like you're gargling almost. This is not the tongue point trill that's the ideal way to roll an R. Another one that many people do who can roll an R is right in the top of, feels like it's in the roof of the mouth. And very often that goes with a big forceful push from the abdomen. And that's not what a tongue point trill that actually trains you to connect, to fuse your tone, your breath, and your support is all about. Okay, so is not it. The tongue point trill is right up behind the top front teeth, and it's driven by the release of air, not a push of anything, not a forceful push. It's just releasing that breath. And so getting that up there, there's a little trick that we kind of use, and it helps especially opera singers who have to sing the Italian word parti, P-A-R-T-I. If you imagine you're saying this, I'll spell it out, P-O-T, another word, O apostrophe, like in O'Hara or something like in Irish, and then T, T-E-A, pot-a-T, like Pat-a-T, 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 pat-a-T. If you say that, releasing breath and not overly articulating, sometimes people try patati, patati, pat, that won't do it. They're very tight and tense. They're not releasing the breath or releasing anything. Or they'll patati, 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 push on it so hard that it won't work, and they're not letting the breath go. But if you let some air in and then just patati, 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 and you may get that little tongue roll up front. That's the important. If you're not doing that, you're not doing a tongue point trill. The other things are not it. They will not serve the purpose of a tongue point trill. Sometimes people use a lip bubble. Okay, if you do what I just did. It's the second best. It's not the best. But some people who can't easily, is useful. Okay. But if that's, if it's forced, that's not it. It has to be driven only by the release of air. Okay, and of course with different tones, which adds a little difficulty. Okay, so those are a couple of little exercise hints that you can actually play with and use, and if you can conquer those, you'll be doing something. Okay, a couple of exercises that I like. I'm going to do here. The exercise is bandala-dala. No, I'm sorry. That I'm confusing exercises. That's bamala. I have a bandala exercise. This is ba-ma-la-ma-la. Okay, we use z. We use these buzzy sounds, again, to help focus the voice forward. They're not pushed from behind. You shouldn't feel like you're grunting, okay, at any moment. It's r, z, l, n, and brr, okay? They're all just released with breath. So this, and B and P, if you're not bearing down on them, B and P should take pressure off your throat and help you release that breath and start the tone. Tongue has to be placed forward. I've talked about that in previous videos, I believe. So the exercise is ba, ba, ma, la, ma, la, ba, ma, la, ma, la. Okay, those M and L should not be forced. Okay, so there's one little exercise that you can do. And another exercise that gives you a larger interval. What you want to do in exercises is use a combination of small to start, stepwise movements for beginners, and small intervals. Maybe a 1, 3, 5 is a lot for a beginning voice to be able to keep that stable, okay, and keep it focused. These things are more difficult than you would imagine. We think singing's easy, and then you get into it and really get into it and don't just go through the motions without thinking about why you're doing the exercises or what they're supposed to accomplish. And you go, ooh, there's a little bit more to it than that. So we have 1, 3, 5 exercises on combinations of things. But then as you get to be a little more advanced, we have unusual exercises like I have do, la, sol, fa is another exercise. Do, la, sol, fa. Now when I first learned this, I learned do, la, sol, fa, so it was connected. But I like doing do and then la, sol, fa, and connecting that final bunch after a little bit of a breath. So do, la, sol, fa, and I'm not connecting that really well today, so anyway, this is the way it is with singing. But that's another good exercise, do, la, sol, fa, to keep that connection. So there are a couple of exercises, and then when you get very, very advanced, you have, and I do that on an A, sometimes, A, to train the tongue not to sing A and E back here. So lots and lots of little details go into these exercises. And why do we do them? So that when you have a song that has that kind of an interval, you're not singing ha, ha, or something horrible like that, but you're singing ha, ha, a little flat, ha, ha, where there's a nice connection and a similar sound. So anyway, that's just a little bit on vocal exercises, what they are, why do we do them, because, and how often should you do them? You need to do them between singing. Say you're singing in the morning. Never go in cold if you have a church singing job or an early class or something. You know, I had voice teachers who used to say, are you warmed up when you came into class? Because you knew how to warm up. You go warm up. You go through motions that get your voice in order to where it feels like it's clear and focused and resonant and everything is ready to go, and then you go have your lesson. You might do a couple of exercises to work out technique, but you never go in cold. and what can you expect to accomplish? You're halfway through the lesson before you're even warmed up, and then you have to sing your song material, and you're not really ready yet to sing the song material. So you warm up before a lesson, you warm up before a class, you warm up before a rehearsal, and you warm down after, because sometimes the stress can leave things in a state where they need to be warmed down. You need to sing a couple of comfortable exercises, or some hums or buzzes or sirens or something, whee, something to relax the voice and bring it down to a comfortable place. It's very athletic. And I'm trying to think, I'm looking at this lovely article to see if there's anything else that I might want to talk about. That may be it. That may be it for today. So a little bit on vocal exercises. Singers, young singers who come from maybe a tradition of music making in their family have a better handle on this. And here's a little social cultural comment. It's unfortunate that we don't have more really solid music teaching in general classrooms, in general grade school classrooms. Back in the old days, we used to have a songbook, and we would regularly, at least once or twice a week, I think, open the songbook and sing a folk song or an American song. People don't know these. They don't know America the Beautiful. They don't know My Country 'Tis of Thee or Oh Beautiful for Spacious Skies. They don't know some of the old folk songs from the Old West or the South. And these are part of our cultural heritage. These are part of history, and they're very vocally friendly. So it's unfortunate that we don't have that kind of training going on to help students not feel silly about that kind of music, for one thing, and to maybe incite or stir up a little interest in singing for those who don't really have the singing experience. But some things that parents can do, and I think I've mentioned this again before. I tend to go over the same territory a lot because it's important and necessary. But parents lightly sing lullabies and fun little nursery songs to your very, very young ones. I'm concerned, and I know it's not ill-intentioned, but I'm concerned when I have a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old youngster who is singing the latest duet from the prize-winning movie with Lady Gaga and the other gentleman, and I'm sorry, it's going out of my head, but the person who wrote the thing, I think. Anyway, and they're singing down here, and they're trying to push out that sound, and then I hear the same little voice popping on notes in her range because of the force and the squeeze that she's putting into making those sounds that are a little bit below her voice range currently. It opens up later on, and it just causes all kinds of problems. And I wish that parents would play other music, maybe play that music too, but play other music that's maybe more child voice appropriate around the children. Let them enjoy singing some of that. And that could be all kinds of different music, but it is a little bit of a study to be able to find the things that are good and not just yelling children's voices. There are a lot of recordings of yelling children's voices that I don't think are conducive to any kind of good vocalizing, but they're lots of fun to jump up and down to. So anyway, my goal and purpose is to help anyone who wants to sing be a better singer, enjoy what they're doing, and learn and prosper and do all of those wonderful positive things. So again, I'm Patricia Shanks. This is Studio Shanks Sundays live at 5 at youtube.com/Patricia Shanks Voice. On Facebook, I'm Patricia Shanks Music is my page, and Twitter, Studio Shanks. I teach voice privately right now in Anaheim Hills. You can find this information on my website if you go to studioshanks.com. And I also teach in Laguna Hills, and I'm a college voice teacher, and I've led children's choirs and adult choirs and have done it all. So, and I look forward to doing it a lot more for a lot longer. So thank you very much for watching, and come back next